إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Continue today with Al-Bab al-Sadis, Al-Wajh al-Sadis min Al-Bab al-Sadis, the sixth aspect of the sixth chapter of the book Ighathat al-Ahfan fi Masa'ir al-Shaytan by its author Al-Imam Al-Hafiz Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyyah rahmatullahi alayhi. In his book, as we know, is about the affairs of the heart and the functions of the heart, and how at-tawheed wa-sunnah wa tarku ma yudaduhuma, at-tawheed and sunnah, and abandoning is the opposite of tawheed and sunnah, is the key to the life of the heart, the meaning of the shahadatain, and he is the basis of the knowledge of the heart and the love and desire of the heart, that a person singles out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with worship and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam being followed as the source of the religion, or as the conveyor of the message, that the risala, that the message is affirmed for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we heard in the previous classes, and he is the reality of the life of the heart, or the light of the heart, meaning that the light that came to the Prophet ﷺ, which is guidance, and the entirety of the revelation of Kitab and Sunnah, and he is the basis of the health of the heart and the strength of the heart, and so on and so forth, and a lack of that is the basis of the destruction of the heart. And the highest knowledge that the Prophet ﷺ came with, and it can even be said that everything that he came with went back to one affair, which was the tawheed of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا نَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُ الطَّاغُوتِ. Indeed, we sent in every nation a messenger instructing them to worship Allah alone and turn away from the taghut. And so this is the second affair of the heart, and what the heart singles out with its love and its hope and its fear and so on and so forth, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that after singling out the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with being the recipient of the message, and this is the point of his message, and the entirety of his message revolved around the tawheed of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, then a person believing in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the revelation that was sent to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then they have to single out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with worship. And these two testimonies of faith that are said with the tongue and admitted with the heart and accepted by the heart and loved with the heart and implemented with the limbs, that they are the basis of the progress of the person, the life and the light that the person is upon, and what he knows and what he loves, and they are the determining factors of everything that comes thereafter, any of his statements and his actions and his behavior and his dealings with others. And so the basis of the happiness of the person is to single out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone without partners, and to seek the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in doing that, and to abandon a shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and seek the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in being protected from a shirk billah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he has built up to this point in the book where he explains this from 10 different aspects, and the fact that there is no life for the heart, and no rectitude for the heart, and no happiness for the heart, unless the deity of a person, and that which is true, the deity of a person and their creator, is that which they alone worship, and that which alone is ghayatu matlubihi, as Ibn Qayyim says, is the extent of his effort, and the epitome of his effort, and his greatest objective is to attain the pleasure of Allah and to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَحَبُّ إِلَيْهِ مِن كُلِّ مَا سِوَاهُ. and unless Allah is more beloved to him than everything else. So we heard over the course of the last few weeks the other aspects, and that Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned, that has built him up to this sixth wajh, and the sixth aspect of explanation of why that is. He says, أن تعلق العبد بما سوى الله تعالى مضرة عليه, that the slave being attached to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is harmful to him. إذ أخذ منه فوق القدر الزائد على حاجته, and that is when the person attaches themselves to something of this world that is beyond their haja, is beyond their need. غير مستعين به على طاعة الله, and he is not using that thing in this world that he has attached himself to aid him and help him in the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and drawing near to Allah. فإذا نال من الطعام والشراب والنكاح واللباس فوق حاجته ضره ذلك. So when he eats and drinks and has intercourse and wears clothes that are beyond his need, then that will harm him. And that will harm him. And the ulama, they make a difference between al-darura wal-haja, yani between a necessity and a need. And a necessity is that which, if a person does not have it, if a person loses it, then it will harm them. It will harm them. It will harm them religiously. It will harm them financially. It will harm them mentally. It will harm them economically. It will harm them, the 5 categories, and some say the 6 categories of the daruriyat that the religions came to safeguard, which is our religion, our religiosity, our religious practice. It came to safeguard our lives. It came to safeguard our intellects. It came to safeguard our lineage. It came to safeguard our money and our property, and it came to safeguard our honor and our reputation. So, الضرورة الضرورة is something تمس بعض هذه الأشياء, it touches, it affects some of these 6 affairs, and it harms, it causes darar if a person doesn't have it, as opposed to a haja. A haja is that which, if a person doesn't have it, it will bring a mashaqqa for him, it will bring a difficulty for him. And everybody knows there's a difference between a harm and a difficulty. Some things, if you don't have them, it's going to be difficult for you, right? And some things, if you don't have them, it's going to harm you substantially. It's going to cause substantial harm to you, right? And so that's what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala is referring to here. And it's not that a person, that they become a hermit-like or ascetic, or they break themselves away from the society and these sorts of things. And if a person eats anything more than what his bare minimum, or drinks anything more than his bare minimum, but this is falling into the irtiyah of the person, the comfort level of a person, that if he doesn't, that which doesn't fulfill his need, because this is also a plot of the shaitan, as the scholars mentioned. The shaitan, as Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions in his book Al-Fawaid, that the thagharat of the shaitan, that the points of ambush of the shaitan are 3 or 4, he mentions. And they are ash-shahwa, al-ghadab, al-ghafla, and a person not having what they need. A person not having what they need of this world. So the shaitan attacks a person from their shahwa, from their ghadab, from their desires and from their anger. Hadith Abdullah bin Amr, Prophet ﷺ said that when Allah created Adam in the paradise, tarakahu ma sha'Allahu an yatruka, he left him in his condition, meaning without a soul, just a body without a soul, as long as he willed to leave him. فَلَمَّا فَجَعَلَ إِبْلِيسُ يَطِيفُ بِهِ يَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهِ. It caused Iblis to make tawaf around Adam. Ibn Kathir said he went through the body of Adam. He went all throughout Adam, and he like a animal upon its prey, like an animal from the predatory animals upon its sayyid, upon its prey. Because he went around Adam, saw everything that he could about Adam, checked out the situation of Adam, looked for the vulnerabilities of Adam. فَلَمَّا رَاهُ أَجْوَفْ. When he saw that he was ajwaf, meaning when he saw that he was hollow, that he had openings. The scholars, they say, as Mubarak Puri said in his explanation of Sahih Muslim, أَنَّ لَهُ جَوْف, that the scholars in the past, he said, meaning when he saw the jawf, the stomach of Adam, the belly of Adam, the organs of Adam, قَالَ ظَفِرْتُ بِهِ, the wording of Imam Malik, he said, I have beaten him. Adam didn't have a soul yet. Shaitan announced victory over Adam. He said, ظَفِرْتُ بِهِ, I've conquered him, I've beaten him already. خَلْقٌ لَا يَتَمَالَكْ, he is a creature that cannot control himself. Meaning that he has these two things, الشهوة والغضب. الشهوة والغضب. And he has desire, lust, and he has ghadab, and he has anger. Right? The third thing they mention is al-ghafla, and heedlessness, forgetfulness. And the fourth thing, and he is where the person, and he لا يأخذ من الدنيا على قدر حاجته, when he doesn't take what he needs from this dunya, and he's not satisfied in this dunya, right? And that causes the person, why? Some of the scholars, they said, إِيَّاكُمْ أَن تُبَغِّضِ الْعِبَادَ إِلَى نَفْسِكَ, and beware of making yourself hate ibadah, right? And a person, they'll make certain unnecessary sacrifices. Some of the imams of the Salaf, they said, وَاللَّهِ لَوْ عَلِمْتُ أَنَّ أَهْلِ أَحْتَاجُوا وَيَحْتَاجُونِ إِلَى شَيْءٍ بَسِيطٍ مِنَ الْمِلْحِ, and if I knew that my family was in need of just a small portion of salt or spice, something to put in the food, لَمَا جَلِسْتُ مَعَكُمْ هَا هُنَا, and I won't be sitting with you here seeking knowledge. If I knew that my family was in need of some type of property or something to help them cook or so on and so forth, right? The scholars, they say, one, because the student of knowledge, if his mind is busy with the dunya, he's not going to be able to focus and memorize and do muraja and so on and so forth. And two, that seeking knowledge, a majority of seeking knowledge is fardun kifai, and it's a community obligation. Some people have to do it, not everybody has to do it, right? And that's the ilm that is, not wajib. There's knowledge that is wajib, everybody has to learn, but then there's knowledge that is above that, beyond that, right? And not everybody has to learn. Not everybody has to learn nahw and sarf and balagha and usul al-fiqh and qawaid fiqhiyya, and they go into a lot of details regards creed and so on and so forth. But the more a person learns of that, the more to benefit them, right? But the point is that if a person makes unnecessary sacrifices sometimes, that causes them to be harmed in other aspects, cause a person to be harmed in other aspects. A person, they say, I want to go and I want to be a student of knowledge in the Islamic University of Medina or in Qura or in Egypt or in this country or that country or whatever, right? How much money do you have, Akhi? I have $3,000 to my name. MashaAllah. Call me from the airport when you run out of money, right? You're not going to be able to survive on just a couple of $1,000s, right? And you're not going to, there's a whole book, Ibn Abdul Barr rahimullah ta'ala, there's a whole chapter rather, Ibn Abdul Barr rahimullah ta'ala, in his book Jami'u Bayan al-Ilm wa Fadlihi, he has a whole chapter of the need of the student of knowledge for money. That the student of knowledge needs money. That's ma'qul. Everybody understands that the student of knowledge needs money. So if a person is sitting, starving to death in a third world country, and he has scarlet fever, and to the end of it, right? And he wasn't even studious when he was back at home, and there's all sorts of things he could have did back at home that could have benefited him in his religion, like get married and things like that, right? And he made certain sacrifices when he wasn't ready for them, right? He hadn't built himself up to that. Then the person, they start to dislike studiousness, and a person, some of the Salaf, they said, whoever مَنْ رَامَ الْعِلْمَ جُمْلَةً ذَهَبَ عَنْهُ جُمْلَةً, and whoever tries to lunge himself into knowledge all at one time is going to leave him all at one time, right? A person has to build himself up to certain things. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimullah ta'ala, we have to understand what he's saying here. He's not saying that if a person benefits from the dunya above his need, he's saying above, or above his necessity. He's saying above his need. He's not saying above his necessity, what is necessary for him to do. He's saying above his need. And in his need is that which he allows him to be comfortable in this world. Allows him to be comfortable in this world. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and He has blessed the people, and they say that the anwa'u ni'am, that the categories of the blessings of Allah are three types. Al-ijadu wal-i'dadu wal-imdad. Al-ijadu, and all the blessings of Allah that are mentioned throughout the Quran, the scholars, they say, go back to these three things. Al-ijad, which is aslu na'am, and that Allah brought you into existence from nothing. Al-ijad, right? The second is al-i'dad. Al-i'dad is that Allah gave you the faculties, Allah prepared, and Allah gave you hidayatul amma, He gave you instinct, and He gave you the faculties of reason, the organs that you need, the limbs of your body, so on and so forth, so that you can survive in this world. Al-i'dad is that which is necessary for al-baqa, which is survival, right? So a person can be alive, and they can be surviving, but they might not be comfortable, right? They might not be comfortable, right? They don't have any raha. And if a person doesn't have rahatul bal, rahatul, peace of mind, raha as regards his situation, al-aman, peace as regards his situation. As the hadith it says, Man asbaha minkum aminan fi sirbihi wa fi lafdin sarbihi wa fi lafdin sarabihi. When a person wakes up in the morning, aminan fi sirbihi. Sirbihi, rahlihi, his home. When a person wakes up safe in their home. Another wording, sarbihi, nafsihi. Another wording, sarabihi, balihi, fi balihi. Aminan, amanul bal, rahatul bal. A person who wakes up safe in his, there's three different wordings, all of them are correct in the context. Whoever wakes up safe in his dwelling with peace of mind and peace of the soul, peace of mind and peace of the soul. آمنا في سربه معافا في بدنه عنده قوت يومه. With healthy in body, with enough food for the day, and it's like he's been given the dunya. فكأنما حيزت له الدنيا بحذافيرها. Hadith report, I believe, in the Sunan of Abu Dawood. And it's like he's been given the world in its entirety, right? So it's important. These three things are from those things that are included in here in the haja of a person. A person, they have a need. A person can't operate if they don't have peace of mind, if they don't have comfort, so on and so forth. If a person is just getting by in the bare essentials, that's not what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala is saying here. But he's saying that the person who takes فوق قدر حاجته, he takes beyond what he needs of this world, and he's excessive. He eats too much, he laughs too much, he talks too much, he sleeps too much, everything that he does in this world as regards this world is like he was created for this world. It's like he was created for this world. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions here that the person attaching themselves to anything besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning from the things of this world, is madarratun alayhi. It is a harm for him إِذَا أَخَذَ مِنْهُ فَوْقَ الْقَدْرِ الزَّائِرِ عَلَى حَاجَتِهِ. When he takes to those things above and beyond that which is from his need. That which is from his need. غَيْرَ مُسْتَعِينٍ بِهِ عَلَى طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ. And he not using those things to help him in obedience to Allah. And when he eats too much, drinks too much, has too much intercourse, وَلِبَاسْ فَوْقَ حَاجَتِهِ. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in other places, and Allah knows best that there's no such thing as too much intercourse, legal intercourse for the person, right? And of course, everything has its limits, right? He said it's not the same as eating too much or drinking too much or laughing too much of these sorts of affairs, and because this is something that is love to Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, and there's many evidences for that from the qurb, that's an act of qurba, it's an act of drawing near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that a person he satisfies their way, fulfills their desires with their legal spouse in a manner that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you get the point. A person that he indulges too much in the things of this world, ضَرَّهُ ذَلِكَ, that is going to harm him. Here Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he's building off of the previous things that he mentioned in this chapter, which is that the dunya has its role. The dunya is it is a wasila, it is not a ghaya. The dunya is a means, it is not an end, or it is ends rather, it is not a means, or it is a means, it is not an end. It is an objective to a goal, but it is not the goal itself. It is not the goal itself, and that the worship of Allah and knowing about Allah and learning about Allah and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, and loving that and having an anxiousness to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these sorts of affairs, that they are more enjoyable for him by far than anything in this world. Than anything in this world. And the person who thinks that the only way to get happiness is from enjoying their self by fulfilling their appetite and their sexual desires and these sorts of things, then the person is gravely mistaken, and those affairs will harm him. Those affairs will harm him. And if the only harm that he gets is that he does not prepare for the hereafter, كَفَى بِهِ ضَرَرًا, and it's enough of a harm for him. It's enough of a harm for him. So we read some of the statements that Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala brought from the nusus, and from the text from the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and from the statements of the Imams of the Salaf. He goes on to say, after bringing the long statement that we read from Al-Hasan al-Basri rahmatullahi alayhi, that he wrote to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he said, وَأَهْلُ الدُّنْيَا وَعُشَاقُهَا أَعْلَمُ بِمَا يُقَاسُونَهُ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ وَأَنْوَاعِ الْأَلَمِ فِي طَرَبِهَا. That the people of this world, that the people that are attached to this world, and the ushaq, the people infatuated and obsessed with this world, they know best about the hardships that they go through and the torment that they go through and every sort of pain and difficulty that they go through pursuing this world. وَلَمَّا كَانَتْ هي أكبر هم من لا يؤمن بالآخرة ولا يرجو لقاء ربه كان عذابه بها بحسب حرصه عليها. And since it is the greatest ambition of those that do not believe in the hereafter and do not hope for the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the torment that a person encounters, the punishment that it is for a person, will be according to his greed and his desire over this world. وَشِدَّةِ اجْتِهَادِهِ فِي طَرَبِهَا, and according to how severe his struggle and pursuit of this world is. وَإِذَا أَرَدْتَ أَن تَعْرِفَ عَذَابَ أَهْلِهَا بِهَا فَتَأَمَّلْ حَالَ عُشَاقٍ وَعَاشِقٍ فَانٍ فِي حُبِّ مَعْشُوقِهِ. He said, if you want to know exactly how the people of the dunya are tormented by the dunya, he said, then contemplate over a person who was infatuated with another, who was obsessed with another, and what they experience by their obsession and their love of the one that they are infatuated with. فَكُلَّمَا رَامَ قُرْبًا مِنْ مَعْشُوقِهِ نَأَى عَنْهُ. He said, a person who was infatuated with someone who was disinterested in them, the more they try to get close to that person, the more نَأَى عَنْهُ, and the more that person tries to get away from them. This is how the عاشق الدنيا, أهل الدنيا, a person obsessed with this dunya is. كُلَّمَا رَامَ قُرْبًا مِنْ مَعْشُوقِهِ نَأَى عَنْهُ وَلَا يَفِي لَهُ. The more they try to get close to them, the more that person runs away from them. So they're stalking that person. وَلَا يَفِي لَهُ. And the person doesn't have any wafa for them. They don't have any loyalty to them. As much as they may be devoted to that person and obsessed with that person and consumed with that person, right? That person has no loyalty to them and no attachment to them at all. كل واحد يدعي وصلا بليلى وليلى لا تقر لهم بذلك. As the poet said, everybody claims that they know Layla, and Layla says she don't know them. Right? There's lines of poetry. It was a guy, they called him Majnoon Layla, and he was crazy for Layla. Called him Majnoon Layla, the guy who was crazy for Layla, right? And there was an actual historical person, and the woman, her name was Layla, and they mentioned the name of the man. And they asked the guy, because he used to write poetry about Layla, right? And his poetry became famous, right? It became widespread and recited by people in all these different lands and so on and so forth. And they asked the guy, after he became older, did you ever, whatever happened with you and Layla? He said, I never had any real relationship with Layla. I was just infatuated with her. He never knew Layla. He was never proposed or anything like that, right? So, I think this person has no wafa for them, right? They say that they're with so-and-so, so they say they don't know you, right? I don't know that guy, right? He's just a weirdo. He keeps, stalking me and showing up, See him in the trees with the binoculars and stuff like that. Don't know what's going on with him. Right? Miskeen, هكذا. Miskeenun da'i. La yafi'u lah. And this person, they have no loyalty for them. وَيَحْجُرُهُ وَيَصِلُ عَدُوَّهُ. At the same time, not only do they not have any loyalty for them, and do they run away from them, the closer they try to get to them. But they totally boycott and abandon them, and they get closest to their, and they get close to their worst enemy. Right? So they got feelings for the enemy. Right? They're with the enemy, with the worst enemy of that person, and they don't have any love for that person. فَهُوَ مَعَ مَعْشُوقِهِ فِي أَنْكَرِ عَيْشٍ. This person is has the most miserable life while they are obsessed with that person. يَخْتَارُ الْمَوْتَ دُونَهُ. But they would rather die than live without them. فَمَعْشُوقَهُ قَلِيلُ الْوَفَاءِ كَثِيرُ الْجَفَاءِ كَثِيرُ الشُّرَكَاءِ سَرِيعُ الْإِسْتِحَالَةِ عَظِيمُ الْخِيَانَةِ كَثِيرُ التَّلَوُّنِ. He said the one that they are obsessed with and in love with has very little loyalty. كَثِيرُ الْجَفَاءِ. And he mistreats them a lot. كَثِيرُ الشُّرَكَاءِ. And has many different partners. سَرِيعُ الْإِسْتِحَالَةِ. As Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in his book Al-Fawaid, الدنيا كامرأة بغي لا تثبت مع زوج إنها وإنما تخطب الأزواج ليستحسن عليها فلا ترضى بالضيافة. It's a tremendous statement. That the dunya is like a prostitute. The dunya kamra'atin baghi, like a prostitute. It doesn't just stay with one partner, but she beautifies herself to her khuttab, and to those people that want to be with her, that want to propose to her, and so on and so forth. So they be astonished with her beauty. So don't be pleased with pimpery. Don't be pimping ain't easy. Right? Don't be pleased with being a pimp. You don't have any, because a person that's with somebody, and that person is promiscuous, and they're sleeping around in them, so on and so forth, don't have any loyalty to them, right? Then that person it's like a pimp, right? Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, فَلَا تَرْضَ بِالدِّيَاثَةِ. Don't be pleased with diyatha, with being a pimp, right? And then he said, مَيَّزْتُ بَيْنَ جَمَالِهَا وَفِعَالِهَا فَإِذَا الْمَلَاحَ بِالْقَبَاحَةِ لَا تَفِي حَلَفَتْ لَنَا أَلَّا تَخُونَ عُحُودَنَا فَكَأَنَّهَا حَلَفَتْ لَنَا أَلَّا تَفِي. He said, I compared between her beauty and between her behavior. And I saw that what I enjoyed about her, and he was not worth the pain that I went through trying to be close to her. She swore to us that she would never break her oath and her promise to us, but it was like she may have sworn that she would never have fulfilled them. He said, so the person that is the ushaq dunya, those people obsessed with the dunya, هكذا. He said, the ma'ashuq of the person, the one that they are infatuated with, قَلِيلُ الْوَفَاء كَثِيرُ الْجَفَاء كَثِيرُ الشُّرَكَاء سَرِيعُ الْإِسْتِحَالَةِ. And this one that they are infatuated with, and he has very little loyalty for them, mistreats them a lot. كَثِيرُ الشُّرَكَاء has many different partners. سَرِيعُ الْإِسْتِحَالَةِ. And he tries to get away from that person as quickly as possible. عَظِيمُ الْخِيَانَةِ. And he is very treacherous towards them. كَثِيرُ التَّلَوُّنِ. They're always shifting, and they don't have any loyalty, as he said, and they have talawun, and they're always with one person to another person to another person. لا يأمن عاشقه معه على نفسه. And the person who was infatuated and obsessed with this person doesn't feel safe with them. You don't have any security with them. ولا على ماله. And they can't trust that person that they are infatuated with their property. مع أنه لا صبر له عنه. But they don't have any patience in staying away from that person. They can't be patient in staying away from them. وَلَا يَجِدْ عَنْهُ سَبِيلًا إِلَى سَلْوَةٍ تُرِيحُ. And then they can't find any salwa, any comfort to give them relief by being away from that person. وَلَا وِصَالٍ يَدُومُ لَهُ فَلَوْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لِهَذَا. And they can't find anything to attach themselves to besides that person that they are infatuated with that's going to last. And that's why they say you don't marry the woman that's what? Hannana. The woman that's Hannana, and she has, and tahin ila zawjiha sabiq. She has feelings for her previous husband. She has feelings for her previous husband. And the person that's obsessed, the person that has feelings for another, right? And no other relationship, nothing else that he connects himself to No other relationship is going to work because of his love for this person who has this sort of quality. He said this is how the ushaq al-dunya are, the people infatuated with the dunya are. The dunya is no different in its coldness and its bitterness and its uncaring for you, and so on and so forth. The dunya la tazin inda Allahi janaha ba'udha, and he is not equivalent to the wing of a mosquito to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a person attaches themselves to it and connects themselves to it, and that's what they deserve. As Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned in the parable about the disbelievers, عَمَلُهُمْ كَسَرَابٍ بِقِيعَةٍ, and that their actions are like a mirage in the desert. And then he brought the parable of the Jews and the Christians. They're going to come on the Yawm al-Qiyamah, and Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala will say, أَلَيْسَ عَدْلٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, isn't it just from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He and yuwalli kulla, is that He entrusts all of His ibad to what they to ila ma kanu ya'buduna fi dunya, that He entrusts all of His ibad to what they used to worship in the dunya. People, they say, by your might and your majesty, that's fair. So Allah will ask, right? فَيُنَادِ مُنَادٍ, and a caller will announce. Hadith in Sahih Muslim, a caller will announce the hadith of the saq, of the mihna, right, where the people will be tested. Right? A caller will announce to the Yahud, and the fire worshippers, the sun worshippers, the moon worshippers, they'll follow what they worship into the fire. Right? They'll follow what they worship into the fire. And no one will remain except for the Muslims, the Jews, and the Christians. And so it will be said to the Christians, what did you used to worship in the dunya? They will say, Isa, the son of Allah. Isa, the son of Allah. Allahu Akbar. And the caller will announce that you have lied. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lam yattakhidh waladan wala sahiba. Allah never had a wife or a child. And they'll just be standing there. And it will be said to them, what do you want? They'll say, what? We're thirsty. And so a mirage will appear to them. A mirage will appear to them, and it'll appear to be water, and they'll follow that into the fire until they fall into the fire. Right? Until they fall into the fire. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, and this is the same thing that is the case of everybody who has any amani batila, any false hopes and false expectations that are not based in reality. Any things that they attach their heart to that are not based in reality, those things, and تَخُونُهُمْ أَحْوَجْ مَا كَانُوا إِلَيْهِ, and at the time that they will need those things the worst, those things will betray them. If a person attaches themselves to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that at the time that they need that thing the most, it will betray them, it will fail them. And so Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, here he mentions the person who attaches himself to the false hopes and expectations of this dunya, taking from it beyond what they need in a manner that will not aid them in obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he connecting their hearts to it, attaching their hearts to it, contrary to the statement of the Salaf when they said, place the dunya in your hand, in your pocket, don't put it in your heart. But they connect their hearts to the dunya and their hearts to wealth and so on and so forth, and then they will find themselves in this condition. He said, فَلَوْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لِهَذَا الْعَاشِقْ عَذَابٌ إِلَّا هَذَا الْعَاجِلُ لَا كَفَ بِهِ. He said that if this person who was infatuated and obsessed with the world did not receive any punishment because of their obsession except this punishment, that would be enough of a torment for them. That would be enough for them to stay away from that thing that they were obsessed with. فَكَيْفَ إِذَا حِيلَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ لَذَّاتِهِ كُلِّهَا. So how much more so for the fact that sooner will come to pass that he will be severed between him and all of his pleasure, everything that he enjoys in this world. وَصَارَ مُعَذَّبًا بِنَفْسِ مَا كَانَ مُلْتَذًّا بِهِ. And he will find those things that he used to enjoy will be the cause of his torment in his grave and in the hereafter. على قدر لذته به التي شغلته عن سيعه عن سعيه في طرب زاده ومصاره معاده. He said to the level that he will be tormented with those things, to the level that he used to enjoy them, he will be tormented by those things that used to busy him away from working to prepare and pursue azad and a provision to journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter. وَمَصَالِحْ مَعَادِهِ, and that which will benefit him and be of an advantage for him in his return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وسنعود إلى تمام الكلام في هذا الباب في باب ذكر علاج مرض القلب حب الدنيا إن شاء الله تعالى. He said, and we will return to the completion of this discussion and the chapter that discusses the cure of the sickness of the heart of loving the dunya, insha'Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إذا المقصود بيان أن من أحب شيئا سوى الله تعالى ولم تكن محبته له لله ولا لكونه معين له على طاعة الله عذب به في الدنيا قبل اللقاء. He said, in as much as that the entire point of mentioning all that was mentioned so far is that whoever loves anything besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his love of that thing was not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his love of that thing was not because it aided him in obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he will be tormented by that thing in this world before the hereafter. كما قيل أنت القتيل بكل من أحببته فاختر لنفسك في الهوى من تصطفي. He mentioned some lines of poetry along those lines. He said, فإذا كان يوم المعاد ولا الحكم العدل سبحانه وتعالى كل محب ما كان يحبه في الدنيا. He said, and on the day of the return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because so far this is their condition in this world, that they will be tormented by the love of the things in this world. He said, and then on the day of judgment, furthermore, the one who was just and fair, and the fair judge, tabaraka wa ta'ala, al-hakamu al-adlu, tabaraka wa ta'ala, he will entrust every person who loved a thing to the thing that they loved in this world. فَكَانَ مَعَهُ إِمَّا مُنَعَّمًا أَوْ مُعَذَّبًا. And so their situation with what they loved and whom they loved, those that they loved, will be either bliss or torment in the hereafter. وَلِهَذَا يُمَثَّلُ لِمُحِبِّ الْمَالِ مَالُهُ شُجَاعًا أَقْرَأ يَأْخُذُ بلحزمته يقول أنا مالك أنا كنزك تصفح له صفائح من نار فيكوى بها جبينه وجنبه وظهره نعوذ بالله. He said, for this reason the one who loved wealth, as come in various reports, and that his wealth will be turned into an enormous snake that will wrap itself around him, and it will say, I am your wealth, I am your kenz, I am your treasure that you used to store away, that you used to hide. And it will spray him with venom of fire. فَيُقْوَى بِهَا جَبِينُهُ وَجَنْبُهُ وَظَهْرُهُ. And then it will burn his sides and his face and his forehead. وَكَذَلِكَ عَاشِقُ الصُّوَرِ. He said, likewise, the person who was infatuated with appearances. The person who was infatuated with appearances. يعني المظهرية الجوفاء. And he is being shallowly attracted to appearance in a shallow way without looking at the reality of affairs. Just being attracted to the appearances of affairs. It's from the most destructive of affairs. It's an authentic hadith reported by Al-Mundhir in Targhib al-Tarhib, graded to be Hasan by Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, إِذَا حَلَّيْتُمْ مَصَاحِفَكُمْ وَزَخْرَفْتُمْ مَسَاجِدَكُمْ فَالدَّمَّارُ عَلَيْكُمْ. That when you beautify your masahif, your copies of the Quran, right? And you beautify them, make them have gold letters and be very, very attractive, right? Beyond just normal, making the writing look nice and making it legible and so on and so forth. إِذَا حَلَّيْتُمْ مَصَاحِفَكُمْ حَلَّيْتُمْ, they say like when you put gold and so on and so forth on the mushaf. He said, and likewise when you over beautify your masajid. Now is there anything better for the people in this world than the mushaf and the masjid, right? But when you go to excesses in beautifying your mushaf and your masjid, فَالدَّمَارُ عَلَيْكُمْ, then destruction will be upon you. So if that's the case of something as tremendous as the mushaf and tremendous as the masjid, then what about the person, yani the ushaq suwar, the people who are infatuated with appearances, infatuated with fashion, infatuated with shoes and clothing and so on and so forth. Yeah, brothers walking around looking like they're metrosexuals, right? People walking around, everything matches from head to toe, right? And the person, everything in their wardrobe they have, and if they go out, they got a blue thobe with the blue kufi with the blue socks, and not just, the blues have to match. It can't be a light blue and a dark blue. It can't be a royal blue and a powder blue, right? All the blues have to match. The Prophet ﷺ كان يكره الكثير من الإرفاح. The Prophet ﷺ used to dislike a lot of irfah. It's a person primping themselves, adjusting their hair and their beard, and always looking in the mirror and straightening themselves out, and so on and so forth. And the believers are as Umar radiallahu anhu, he wrote to the army of the Muslims when they were in Azerbaijan, and Abu Hurairah was the Amir, he was the commander of the army. And many of the companions, such as Abdullah bin Umar and others, they were in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is where? Azerbaijan. It's like borders of Russia, right? It's cold, right? Umar, he wrote to them, right? وَخْشَوْشِنُوا وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَزِيَ الْعَاجِمِ. He said, وَخْشَوْشِنُوا. And he said, تَمَعْدَنُوا. And he be like the original Arabs, and you have some toughness about themselves. وَخْشَوْشِنُوا. And have some khushuna. Have some toughness about yourselves. Have some khushuna. Have some ruggedness about yourselves. He said, and I warn you of the libas of the zi, and the clothing of the a'ajim, of the non-Arabs, of dressing like the kuffar, right? You see, some people, they primp themselves with their thobes and stuff like that. But there's a level past that, right? There's a level past that. The guy, he got his hair all done up. He has more hair than his wife, right? Got his hair all twisted up, done up, so on and so forth, right? He got his skinny jeans on, everything, fashion. The kuffar have branded him. Everything on him is a brand of the kuffar. It's like he belongs to them, right? And even the scholars, they were asked, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, he was asked about the people wearing the football jerseys or the sports jerseys with the names of the athletes upon them. And he said, this is ينبغي تركه. This is something that must be left. It's something that must be left. And the people wearing the names of the disbelievers, so on and so forth. A person has 10 articles of clothing. Each article of clothing has the name of a different kafir on it, right? He couldn't get the name that had the little buckle on there, the little piece on it, right? And he Fubu, right? And it's a knockoff, right? When the letters are real big, it's a knockoff when the letters are real big, right? It's not Sean John, it's Sean John. Sean on the front, John on the back, right? He got the glasses, right? He got the glasses, look like a clown. These big glasses the brothers are wearing now. They got the big, huge thing on the side. True religion. Allahu Akbar. True religion, true religion is Islam. True religion, they have a logo, as you said in the khutbah, they have the logo of what? The little Buddha. They say true religion and have a little Buddha on it. What's the hukm of that? Right? What's the ruling of that? Person walking around with a little Buddha on them. Are they mukrah? Does somebody force them to put Buddha on? Walk outside the house with the Buddha on? It's a serious affair, right? And he saw Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, likewise is ashiq al-suwar. And the person who was infatuated with suwar, yani al-madhariya, the person who was infatuated with appearances, whether it's a physical appearance of a person or just the appearance of the dunya, appearance of their clothing, these sorts of affairs. He said, likewise, this person, what they were attached to in this world, they will find themselves tormented by those things in the hereafter. Just like they were tormented by those things in this world. جُمِعَ بَيْنَهُمَ فِي النَّارِ. Those people that they were infatuated with, that are from the people of fire, they will be gathered with those things in the fire, those people in the fire. وَعُذِّبَ كُلُّ مِنْهُمَ بِصَاحِبِهِ. And each of them will be a means of torment for their sahib. As opposed to the people of Jannah, their company in the Jannah will be ladda ala ladda. It will be one bliss upon another bliss. And being in the company of those that you love in the paradise, it will increase them in happiness. When the people of fire see each other and they realize that they contributed to themselves being in the fire, they're not going to be happy to see each other. The fact that they see each other in the fire or hear each other screaming in the fire and these sorts of affairs, and is going to be adhab ala adhab, is going to be torment on top of their torment. As Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, Ibn Qayyim, he says, as Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, he said, Al-akhila'u yawma idhin ba'duhum li ba'dhin aduwwun illa al-muttaqin. And that the people who had khullah in this world, the people who had deep love for one another in this world, will be enemies towards one another on that day, on the day of judgment, except to the exception of those that had taqwa. They are the exception to that. وأخبر سبحانه وتعالى أن الذين توادوا في الدنيا على الشرك يكفر بعضهم ببعض يوم القيامة ويلعن بعضهم بعضا ومأواهم النار وما لهم من ناصرين. And Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, Ibn Qayyim said, He has informed that those that loved one another in this world, based upon their shirk, that they would disbelieve in one another on the day of judgment, and they will curse one another on the day of judgment, and their final abode will be the fire, and no one will be able to help them against Allah. فَالْمُحِبْ مَعَ مَحْبُوبِهِ دُنْيًا وَأُخْرَى. So a person will be with those that they love in this world and the hereafter. وَلِهَذَا يَقُولُ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ لِلْخَلْقِ أَلَيْسَ عَدْلًا مِنِّي أَنْ أُوَلِّي كُلَّ رَجُلٍ مِنْكُمْ مَا كَانَ يَتَوَلَّى فِي دَارِ الدُّنْيَا. For this reason, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He will say on the day of judgment, isn't it justice from me that I entrust each man from you, or turn each man from you to those that they used to have al-wala for, those that they used to have allegiance and loyalty for in the life of this world. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said in the hadith of Abi Musa muttafaq alayhi, agreed upon by Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahab. It's a very short hadith. A very short hadith. Al-mar'u ma'a man ahab. A man will be with those whom he loves. وقال تعالى, and Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, he said, وَيَوْمَ يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا يَا وَيْلَتَ لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أَتَّخِذْ فُلَانًا خَلِيلًا لقد أضلني عن الذكر بعد إذ جاءني وكان الشيطان للإنسان خذولا. And on that day, the zalim, the oppressor, will bite upon his hands. He will bite his hands, and he will say, woe be to me, اتخذت مع الرسول سبيلا. If I had only taken a pathway towards the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or alongside the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Woe be to me had I not taken so and so as my Khalil, as my beloved and my friend. لقد أضلني عن الذكر بعد إذ جاءني. Rather, he caused me to stray away from the remembrance after it had come to me. وكان الشيطان للإنسان خذولا. And the shaitan is ever a forsaker to mankind. The shaitan will always forsake mankind. وقال تعالى احشروا الذين ظلموا وأزواجهم وما كانوا يعبدون من دون الله فاهدوهم إلى صراط الجحيم وقيفوهم إنهم مسؤولون ما لكم لا تناصرون. الله أكبر. In Surah Al-Safat, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He says, احشروا الذين ظلموا وأزواجهم. And He gathered those that oppress themselves in their azwaj. The azwaj here is not their spouses, but their mates. And those that they were paired with and coupled with in this world. And He gathered the people and their companions. And those people that they were coupled with. وَمَا كَانُوا يَعْبُدُونَ. And what they used to worship. مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Besides Allah. فَحْدُوهُمْ. And guide them where? إِلَى صِرَاطِ الْجَحِيمِ. To the path of the hell. To the path of hellfire. وَقِيفُوهُمْ. And make them stand. First, إِنَّهُمْ مَسْئُولُونَ. Because verily they are going to be asked. What are they going to be asked? مَا لَكُمْ لَا تَنَاصَرُونَ بَلْ هُمُ الْيَوْمَ مُسْتَسْلِمُونَ. They will be asked, why aren't you helping each other now? Supporting each other now? But rather on that day they will surrender one another. They will forsake one another, turn one another over. وقال عمر رضي الله عنه أزواجهم أشباههم ونظراؤهم. From the tafsir is the statement of Umar radiallahu anhu. He said there, azwaj was meant by their mates here, are their ashbah, yani those that were similar to them and comparable to them in action. وقال تعالى وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ زُوِّجَتْ. And Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He said, and on that day, the nufus, the souls of the people, they will be paired together. فَقُرِنَ كُلُّ شَكْلٍ إِلَى شَكْلِهِ. So every soul will be coupled with those souls that resembled it. وَجُعِلَ بَيْنَهُمَا قَرِينًا وَزَوْجًا الْبَرُّ مَعَ الْبَرِّ وَالْفَاجِرُ مَعَ الْفَاجِرِ. And the righteous will be with the righteous, and the wicked will be with the wicked. وَالْمَقْصُودُ أَنَّ مَنْ أَحَبَّ شَيْئًا سِوَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى فَالضَّرَرُ حَاسِنٌ لَهُ بِمَحْبُوبِهِ. He said in the point, in the summary, whoever loves anything, anyone besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a way that is not because for the sake of Allah, and to aid them in obedience to Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, whoever loves anything besides Allah, anyone besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the harm that they will get from that love, in wujida wa in fuqid. And he will be whether they are with that person or away from that person. And while they are with that person, they will be tormented by that person. And when they are separated from that person, they will be tormented from that person. فَإِنَّهُ إِنْ فَقَدَهُ عُذِّبَ بِفَوَاتِهِ. And when he loses that person, a person is taken from him for one reason or another, death or separation or whatever. And then his loss of that person will be a means of torment for him. وَتَأَلَّمَ عَلَى قَدْرِ تَعَلُّقِ قَلْبِهِ بِهِ. And according to the attachment of his heart to that person will be how much pain he feels by being separated and losing that person. وَإِن وَجَدَهُ كَانَ مَا يَحْصُلُ لَهُ مِنَ الْأَلَمْ قَبْلَ حُصُولِهِ وَمِنَ النَّكَدِ فِي حَالِ حُصُولِهِ وَمِنَ الْحَسْرَةِ عَلَيْهِ بَعْدَ فَوَاتِهِ أَضْعَافِ مَا فِي حُصُولِهِ لَهُ مِنَ لَذَّةٍ. He said, and what he did to be with that person before he was with that person, and the naked and the difficulty that he felt upon being with that person, being united with that person, and then the sadness that he feels after losing that person. He said, if you compare these three things, the hardship a person went through to get the person, and the hardship a person went through being with that person, and the sadness and regret that they went through after losing the person, right? He said that it is أضعاف ما في حصوله من اللذة. And it is many times beyond any pleasure that they ever felt in being with that person. Allahu Akbar. And then he quotes the lines of poetry. فَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ أَشْقَ مِن مُحِبٍّ وَإِن وَجَدَ الْهَوَى حُلْوَ الْمَذَاقِ تَرَاهُ بَاكِيًا فِي كُلِّ حَالٍ مَخَافَةَ فُرْقَةٍ أَوْ لِاشْتِيَاقِ فيبكي إذا نأوا شوقا إليهم ويبكي إن دنوا حضر الفراق فتسخن عينه عند التلاقي وتسخن عينه عند الفراق. He said there is no one in the earth that is more miserable than a person in love. وإن وجد الهوى حلو المذاق. And even if he finds fulfilling his desire tastes sweet to him at that moment, تراه باكيا في كل حال. You find him crying all the time. مخافة فرقة أولي الشياق. Because he is afraid that he is going to be separated from that person, or because he is anxious to be with that person. فيبكي إذا نأوا شوقا إليهم. And so he cries when that person is far away from him, and he with the anxiousness of being back with them. وَيَبْكِي إِذَا دَنَوْا حَضْرَ الْفِرَاقِ. And when that person is close, they still cry out of fear that they're going to lose them at some point. فَتَسْخُنُ عَيْنُهُ عِنْدَ التَّلَاقِ. And so his eye does not find comfort when he is with that person. وَتَسْخُنُ عَيْنُهُ عِنْدَ الْفِرَاقِ. And his eye does not find comfort. He doesn't find any comfort when he is separated from that person. These lines of poetry, and he said they are for an-nasib in his diwan. وهذا أمر معلوم. And for those people who like poetry, I'm not one of them. وهذا أمر معلوم بالاستقراء والاعتبار والتجارب. He said this is an affair that is known by deduction, by contemplation, and by experience. ولهذا قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. How many people are there that come into the fold of Islam or are new to religiosity, and he hooked up with somebody that they shouldn't have hooked up with, had a dawah project, so on and so forth, And to them, the worst thing in the world would ever being separated, would be being separated from that person. Oh Allah, don't let me lose this woman. Oh Allah, I really love her. Oh Allah, I don't know what I'll do if I was to separate from my wife. Wow, to the end of it, right? And then that person, alhamdulillah, some iman kicks in, and that person is nowhere in the picture anymore, right? The scholars, they used to say, their advices to the youth, don't marry a woman that is too beautiful. I know a brother, he said he was married to a woman here, right? He doesn't live here anymore. He was married to a woman that was a supermodel. And she was a brand new Muslim, right? She was a brand new Muslim, and just years before that, she had been a supermodel, right? And he said he was head over heels for the girl. He was, infatuated with the girl. He just, he walked around, with his head in the clouds all day and so on and so forth, right? But she was bad for his religion. She was very bad for his religion. And when he kicked her to the curb, walillahi alhamd, and there were no children involved, lillahi alhamd. They didn't procreate. They didn't have children though, right? Didn't have any children, so on and so forth. He said, alhamdulillah, it was one of the best decisions he ever made was to divorce her, right? And if she's listening, I don't know who she is, Inshallah, you got more religious since then. Barakallahu fiki. Ala kullin. Whatever the case, a person that he is with somebody and they're infatuated with them, so on and so forth, and in a manner that distracts them away from what is truly beneficial for them. This is something that is known by tajarib. It's known by experience, the experiences of people contemplating over the situations of people, so on and so forth. For this reason, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith reported by At-Tirmidhi and others, "Ad-dunya mal'una, mal'unun ma fiha." I just remembered he said that sister apostated after that. But she came back to her religion. I ask Allah to guide her back to her religion. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala softens her heart for what's correct. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith reported by Tirmidhi that the dunya is cursed. Mal'un. Mal'una here because the dunya is mu'annatha. The dunya is mal'una. Mal'una is cursed. And al-la'na is al-ibti'ad an rahmatillah. Is that something is distanced away from the mercy of Allah. It is removed far from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know the mercy of Allah is that which is in this world and the hereafter. Right? So we'll see what the hadith means with the rest of the hadith. This world is cursed, meaning it is far from the mercy of Allah. Because the mercy of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala khalaqa mi'ata rahma. He created 100 portions of mercy. And one of them is in this world. One of them is in this world. And the rest of them have been reserved to the day of judgment. And so the person that he used the dunya in a way that would prevent him from being rewarded in the hereafter and receiving the mercy of Allah in the hereafter, you see what it means. That the world is cursed. And if he enjoyed a small portion of some mercy in this world, and he is far from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This world is cursed. Mal'unun ma fiha. And everything in it is also mal'un. It is also cursed. Illa ma fiha min dhikrillah wa ma walahu. Except what is found in it of the remembrance of Allah, the dhikr of Allah, and everything that aids a person in remembrance of Allah. فَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ جَمِيعُ أَنْوَاعِ طَاعَتِهِ. He said that the dhikr of Allah is every type of obedience to Allah, meaning the whole religion is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَكُلُّ مَنْ كَانَ فِي طَاعَتِهِ فَهُوَ ذَاكِرُ. And everyone that is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they are remembering Allah. We mentioned in the last sitting, and that when the man he said, "Inna shara'i al-Islam qad thaqulat alayya wa kathurat alayya," and that the shara'i, the laws of Islam, are many to me. فَأَوْصِنِي. So give me a wasiyah, and he give me a simple advice, something that is easy for me to do. Prophet ﷺ said, "La yazal lisanuka ratban min dhikrillah." Don't let your tongue stop being moist from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because a person who is truly remembering Allah, he's going to be what? He's going to be obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person is truly remembering Allah, is going to be the greatest means of him and help for him to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, so everyone who is obeying Allah is remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the remembrance of Allah, as is mentioned in this hadith and elsewhere in the text, it is the entire religion. It is the entire religion. وَإِن لَمْ يَتَحَرَّكْ لِسَانُهُ بِذِكْرٍ. Even if his tongue isn't moving with dhikr. And if he is obeying Allah, then with his limbs he is remembering Allah. وَكُلُّ مَنْ وَالَاهُ اللَّهُ فَقَدْ أَحَبَّهُ وَقَرَّبَهُ. He said, in everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He has placed at His disposal to aid him in his obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah loves that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring the person near to Him because of that. فَاللَّعْنَةُ لَا تُنَالُ ذَلِكَ بِوَجْهِ وَهِيَ نَائِلَةُ كُلَّ مَا عَدَاهُ. He said, and the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not bring any of that about for that person, but rather it will bring about everything else for the person, everything that is contrary to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what aids a person in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the end of the speech of Al-Imam Al-Hafiz Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi in Al-Wajh al-Sadis, the sixth aspect of this sixth chapter. And he continues the seventh aspect, and we'll continue perhaps Friday inshallah, that if the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relies upon the creation and places trust upon the creation, يُوجِبُ لَهُ ضَرَرْ مِنْ جِهَتِهِ هُوَ وَلَا بُدْ, and that this will be a means of harm for the person. That's similar to what we mentioned before, the person who attaches himself to other than Allah, and then his expectation of that thing benefiting him, his placing his reliance upon that thing, and it will betray him at the time that he needs it most. It will betray him at the time that he needs it most. So this is additional beyond what was mentioned in this last aspect, which is a person connecting his heart to the creation. This is the seventh aspect, is regarding his relying upon that thing. And he says of placing his reliance upon Allah, his placing his reliance upon a concept, or his reliance upon some property, something that he owns in this world, or his reliance upon another person. His reliance upon another person, that person, as the scholars they say, man tawakkala ala ghayrillah wukkila bihi, that the person who places their reliance upon other than Allah, then they will be wukkila bihi, then they will be entrusted to that thing. They put their trust upon other than Allah, they will be entrusted to that thing. They will be entrusted to that thing. As the Prophet ﷺ said about the person, man allaqa, the person who ties, the tama'im, the amulets and the talismans and so on and so forth, wukkila bihi, he will be connected to that thing that he has connected himself to, and he will be entrusted to that thing. Let that thing benefit you, right? Let that thing benefit you, and it will be istidraj from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.